Hey there, Tavoya Conover, and this is another episode of the Cherished Daughters podcast, in which we are going to be discussing another episode of the Water Walkings Chronicle that I started. So, the Water Walking Chronicle, what I'm doing is I'm laying out the process that the Lord took me through when He called me to start Cherished Daughters mentoring back in at the end of 2018, going into 2019, and the faith walking process that He took me through as I learned about leaning on Him despite what it looks like. And I want to share this with other women of God who believe that God is calling them to build something that they don't know how to do. Like, He's calling you to make something that's so incredible and so huge, you don't know how it's going to happen, and nothing in your environment suggests that this can be the case. But God has chosen you. He's chosen to partner with you in this, and this is going to be an adventure. And you're going to experience a whirlwind, a bevy of emotions. And so I'm going to share my process with you and how I chose to listen to God despite what I was feeling, and where that led me. So let's talk about that. So I'm going to be glancing over here because this is where my notes are, but I do want this to be more of an intimate conversation between sisters in Christ. So the last episode, the first two stages were the fear of leaving, and the fear of leaving is really just when you first hear that prompt from the Lord that He wants you to leave the thing that you're comfortable in doing. It may not be your favorite thing to do, but it's something you've grown accustomed to doing. You know what to expect, this routine. He's like, yeah, let's end the routine unless I want to move you into something new. And then that's a lot of fear, right? And then you go into the joy of revelation, because you're like, okay, you've accepted the fact that you're going to be shifting into something new, and then you're just excited, like, oh my goodness, Lord, you want me to do this? You want to partner with me to do this? How wonderful, how exciting. So that's the next day. So you go from like complete shock and awe, like, you want me to do what now, Lord, to like, oh my goodness, this could be so amazing. This is so exciting. I wonder what this is going to look like. And now we're into step 3 of what I experienced and what I'm calling blind faith. So this is when you actually get out of the boat and you start walking on water. But the key to the thing, right? Let's go back to the example with, water walking, is referencing Peter, Jesus' disciple, and how he asked Jesus, God, if that's you walking on the water, bid me to come to you. And so Jesus said, it is me, come. So Peter gets out of the boat and attempts to walk on water. So this is what you're doing in this step of your journey, building the incredible purpose-driven dream business organization, whatever it is that God's calling you to do. So you get out of the boat. The key thing, the thing that kept Peter on the water and not sinking, was he kept his eyes on Jesus. We have to keep our eyes on Jesus in this process, because like we said earlier, nothing around you suggests that this thing can happen. And just like with Peter, nothing around him said that he should be able to walk, because up until this moment it was just water, and water was not made for walking. So what I did in this season was I stayed in a place of constant prayer. And by keeping my eye on Jesus, it's like I'm looking at Him. So I'm in prayer constantly, in the Word constantly. And one of the ways that I practically was able to do this was I had to be incredibly intentional and non-compromising in the prayer time that I had with the Lord. And I was lucky enough to have an international house of prayer campus here around my town in North Atlanta. And so I would attend that house of prayer. And the house of prayer is a 24-hour place of prayer. And they have chapters all around the world. And so I would start my day after I take my kids to school. I would go to the house of prayer and spend about an hour just in intentional prayer. And the beautiful thing about doing this is it shifted the atmosphere of what I could believe and what I could see. Because in my home, in my environment, it's getting dark. Excuse me 1 second. I'm going to turn this light on. There we go. That's better. because the light just shifted. We were doing natural light. So in my home, in my environment, nothing said that you should be able to build this thing and you don't know what you're doing. You've never started a non-profit organization. Who's going to listen to you? Where are you going to get the funding from? How are you going to put the structure in place? All these questions, right? Everything said you can't do this. So I had to specifically get out and shift the atmosphere, shift my environment to a place of hope, belief, and faith. And so prayer, by its very nature, takes you into a place of faith because it quiets your flesh, this outer casing, this earth suit that the Lord has assigned us to go through this life. You have to silence that in order to fully engage in meaningful, intentional prayer, conversation with the Lord. So just imagine going to a space where people are praying and everyone's on one accord with the goal of hearing from heaven. Now that's a completely different shift than the hustle and bustle of everyday mornings where people are just trying to get to their job, get to the next thing to meet their physical need. So being able to put myself in that environment in the house of prayer where I could hear from God daily, uncompromising. And when I tell you uncompromising, like I wasn't going to be able to do, I made it so that I was meeting with the board of this organization. So Jesus, God the Father, and the Holy Spirit were the board members for Cherished Daughters Mentoring. And I was going in there on a mission to get directions on what we are doing today in this business. What are we doing today, Lord? And I made that a part of my routine. I was not willing to compromise on it because if I'm building something that I've never seen before, something that I've never done before, and it's been a direct order that I believe I got from the Lord, why would I not consult him every day as I'm building this thing? I literally don't know what I'm doing. That's why it's called blind faith. There's nothing yet. There's nothing physically that says this is going to be something. I have to actually manually walk it out and create it. So the way that I did that, prayer. And I would wait. I would go in with my concerns, the things that I was having problems with. I would lay them before the Lord, and then I would take scripture. I made these little note cards. I looked up faith scriptures about faith, and I would read them out to myself. The Lord is with me, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? The Lord is with me, he is my helper. I look in triumph on my enemies. Psalms 118, 6-7. And I just made a bunch of those. And I would repeat in prayer. I would memorize those. And then I would repeat God's word back to him, reminding him of what he said and how he promised to show up for me and how he promised to lead me and guide me into all truth. And he promised that if I lean not on my own understanding, but in all my ways acknowledge him, that he would establish my steps. So I'm like, Lord, you have to do this because this is what you said in your word. And you promised that your word wouldn't return to you void, that it would go out and it would accomplish what you said it was going to do. So that means that you have to do this thing that you said you would do for me. And so I did that, and it really helped gird up my strength. It really helped to support me and build a foundation as I'm walking out the steps. And so during this blind faith, I would take the time to spend in prayer with God, and then that would give me the strength and the courage to go and do the actual physical research on, okay, what does it take to set up an organization? What is the paperwork that I have to file? What are the fees that I have to pay? And then I would go through that. What are the conversations? What are the doors that I have to knock on? So being in a place of constant belief and faith and expecting God to answer, it gave me the strength to continue on as I would face the challenges and the doubts that you would encounter in your day-to-day life, trying to put the physical steps in order to bring the business about, because you still have to make phone calls and talk to people. You still have to knock on doors and ask for partnerships. You still have to solicit volunteers and mentors and mentees and all of these things. You have to do the work. God is not just going to say, okay, you prayed, now here is your organization. No, we're doing this. We're coming into this place of prayer and remaining here as we so we can walk out this blind faith. So it doesn't matter you're blind. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter the nose that you get. It doesn't matter the door that didn't open. It doesn't matter the partnership that fell through. You know that it has to happen because God told you that it would. So in spite of the obstacles that you're faced, because you're going to face obstacles, right? We live in a physical world. So there are going to be obstacles that you face, but having those blinders on that you're only going to hear what God told you when you were in your quiet time, when you were in prayer. And that's another thing. I'm sorry, let me go back to that. Along with the word, saturating your environment with prayer, faith, and belief. You also want to sit in quiet meditation, waiting to hear back from God. So you are having this CEO meeting with the Lord, the Holy Spirit, and with Jesus every morning. And so you're sitting there waiting to hear what they're going to say. So I would have my little notebook and my pen, and I would just write whatever I thought I heard the Lord saying. What you say today, Lord? What are you talking about? And I would write down what he said, and then I would do that, and then expect. And then sometimes he would just say things like, call so and so, or reach out to this church, or look for this. It wouldn't be a big complicated list of steps. It would just be a one thing, a one utterance. And even if, and you're like, well, Tavoya, well, how do I know if it's me or if it's the Lord? Do it anyway. Do it in good faith that you think it was the Lord, and watch him show up. It may be something where, like, I think I was going to the house of prayer, and after my time of prayer, I think I was sitting in a little coffee shop, and I just started talking to one of the women. She told me that she had a girls mentoring program and that she was an attorney, and I needed help filing my paperwork to get my nonprofit status. And I was having such a time doing all of this, and I just so happened to meet a woman who also has her own teen mentoring program, who also is an attorney and knows how to file the paperwork. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, those type of things happen when you are intentional and walking blindly and just being like, Lord, I trust you. I don't know where the answer is going to come from, but I trust that you're going to give me the answer, and I'm going to do the part that I know how to do, and then I'm going to trust you to do the part that I can't do. So whatever little nuggets that he downloads to you every day, I'd say go into your prayer and journaling time every day with a sense of expectation that he's going to say, that he's going to speak, that he's going to tell you something. Whether that something is a verse that he wants you to read, whether that something is someone he wants you to pray for. If you just get a name in your spirit, pray for that person. If he urges you, he gives you a name, and you feel like a nudge, you're supposed to call this person, or you're supposed to text this person. Don't dismiss it. Every little thing, like, this is blind. You in this season, you cannot be committed to it. Doesn't make sense. I don't get it. I don't understand. Let me be clear to you. You are not going to understand. It is not going to make sense until you get to the finish line. And maybe even then he won't reveal it for 1 or 2, 3 years later, and you'll get the full scope of it. But what this process is meant to do, you've been chosen. Like, you should be honored. You have been chosen by God for this journey, and he is going to build intimacy with you. You are going to get to know him on a deeper level. Walking blindly in faith and doing things that you believe God said to do, and then watching them actually produce fruit, it grows your heart and your trust in God so much. Because now you're not going strictly off of something that you read. You're not going strictly off of the testimony of your pastor or a friend or your mom or your grandmother. You are establishing a track record with God of Him showing up in miraculous ways. And this is going to equip you to go the distance in this organization, this business, this ministry that He's calling you to build. It's going to make you have that much more staying power, because you remember the time that you obeyed God and you sent so and so a text and they say, hey, I was just thinking about you. I was just asking God, if you want me to do this, then show me. And then you text me. I've had these experiences. I've had friends who've had these experiences. And the great part of it is that you're not going to know this until you start acting it. You start walking it out. The opportunities are not going to be able to present themselves until you start doing it. Yeah, you're going to have to do it, and I really encourage you. It's going to be empowering. So I wanted to say, if you don't have a house of prayer and you're like, Toya, that's great, I do want to be in a place of prayer, I do want to be able to hear the voice of God, but I don't have a house of prayer. I put a link for all the house of prayers, their main website, so you can find the ones that are around you if there aren't any. But I will also encourage you to look into prayer calls. I have several girlfriends who do prayer calls every day. There are a lot of ministries who do them daily. There are some ministries that do it monthly. But if you can't find a prayer call to join, I would see if there's a local church who has a prayer ministry that meet. And then if not, you're just going to have to commit that you're going to keep your appointment with the Lord every day non-negotiable. Make it non-negotiable, because in order to build something supernatural, you're going to have your spirit, the part of you that is not natural. It's going to have to be activated, because we have to remember, and I was just reminded of this, I think that was in my notes, I didn't say it, but I do want to circle back to it, is that we are human beings, right? And we have a spirit and a soul. And so we are connected to God through our spirit, but we experience life through our physical body. And so this physical body wants to be safe, right? It wants to survive. It wants to avoid hurt. So you wanting to take a risk and do something unfamiliar, something that could be dangerous, you're going to have to fight against your physical body's desire, your natural way of being, your natural man. That way of being is going to want to remain the same. So you have to fight against that. So you have to make the inside you, the spiritual version of you, that part has to be stronger than the physical outside version of you. And another way you can do that is through fasting too. Fasting is very helpful, but you want to feed the spirit part of you more than you do the physical part of you, especially through this blind faith part, because nothing around you says that what you heard God say to build and bring the physical manifestation to the earth, there's nothing around you that says that can happen. There's no physical evidence yet of it. So your faith is blind. You're just walking off of what the voice that you heard God, the voice of God, and what you heard Him tell you to build, your action, and then your commitment to the word that God is going to bring about what He said to do. That's why your spirit man has to be strengthened, and that's why you need to be strong. And so that non-compromised prayer routine, right? Being diligent in that. And the other thing that I wanted to say, you're not going to be able to share this part of the journey with lots of people, because once again, right, we are fleshly human beings, and the people that love you, they are going to want to keep you safe. They're not going to want to encourage you to take on risks. They don't want you to do anything that's going to hurt yourself. And our world says, make calculated decisions, and you have to be wise, and And while all that is true, I'm not saying being reckless. I don't think the Lord would tell you to be reckless. But the thing that He's telling you to do may be unconventional and the way that the world would do things. And so with that being the case, I highly recommend that you maybe find one person, two as a stretch, who you can share this process of the journey with. For the most people, you're just going to have to show up with the new baby. They're not going to be able to know that you were pregnant carrying something through this. You're going to have to just show people the end result. You won't be able to share this with people because it's going to damper their attempts to keep you safe. Is going to damper your enthusiasm after going after, and your confidence that you can do the thing that God called you to do, that you can build the thing that God has called you to build. So you're not going to be able to share that with them. And I know that's hard because we are familiar people. We're made for community, but not this part. You're not going to be able to take them on this part of the journey. So if you're really chatty, like I was very chatty, I always wanted to tell people what I had going on. Yep, you're not going to be able to do that in this season. You're just going to have to be quiet and do it, and then come with the results. That's it. You're going to have to just keep it to yourself, you and the Lord. That's why when you get to your board meeting with the Lord, you tell them all about it. Oh, and another thing that helped me understand is, like, if you do share with someone that you thought would be a safe person and they completely dash your hopes and dreams in an attempt to keep you safe, right? Remember that when God first told you to do it, you couldn't believe it either. It was so huge, so amazing, that it felt like something that was completely outside of the realm of possibility. So don't be disappointed when they also have the same experience and they can't understand how you think that you're going to be able to pull this off, because it's a God-sized dream and it takes the Lord leading the way and opening doors. Yes, so keep it as a beautiful secret between you and the Lord. And then also remember that prayer is so key because it will give you peace. It will give you peace and aid in the divine revelation that it takes for you to be able to walk this out. So many things that I learned and the moves that I made was just by that, just being able to hear from God and following His footsteps. So I want to create a list of faith-building scriptures for you to download so you can refer to them as you're walking this out. And yeah, I do recommend that you maybe, if you can't find one or two friends that you could share with, you should look for a community of people who are believing like you. Look for a mentor or a coach or a training program or something like that. That's one of the things I would ask God about, like, where is there anywhere that you would have me to go to get additional support as we walk through this, Lord, where there's some resources. So He led me to a nonprofit mentoring kind of organization. So I went to this nonprofit leader training, and that was after He told me to call a bunch of churches. I was calling churches, and I thought I was going to be partnering with the churches, looking for partnerships. And there were some partnerships that came from it, but one of the main things that came from it was that I reached out to a church that I used to attend, and I told them about what I was building, and they agreed to work with me and sponsor me through this nonprofit training, which I learned so much. It was invaluable. The program itself cost thousands of dollars, but I didn't pay anything out of pocket. That was what they were willing to do, and so that was their partnership. And I made so many great connections as a result of that obedience. And it was just like God said, call, and I called And the guy was like, hey, yeah, I just came into this position and we're just now reevaluating all of our community partnerships. I would love to bring you in the office and hear more about what it is that you're doing. And that was because that morning in prayer, the Lord said to call churches. So he didn't tell me which church to call. He just told me to call churches. I had created a spreadsheet of churches to call. And I was just going down the list, calling churches. And this may have been my second call that day. And this is what happened. So it's those little tiny micro wins that you think, like, I don't see why am I doing this? But you need to have those conversations with him, because he's got little landmarks, little things set aside just for you that he wants you to discover. But you won't do that if you don't get alone and still enough to hear from him and then execute on the thing that he's called you to do. So the main takeaway is that when you as you're walking through your time with the Lord, you're going to come to a place where you're going to have to operate in blind faith, despite the fact there's nothing around you that says it's going to be a success. You're going to believe that it can be a success. You're going to saturate yourself in prayer and worship and meditation, journaling. As you wait to hear your orders from the Lord, you're going to prioritize this time, whether that be going to a house of prayer, getting on a prayer call, creating your own prayer call, or just making a dedicated time, uncompromised time to meet with the Lord. Make an uncompromised time to meet with the Lord and do it every day, every single day. You cannot miss it in this season. It's literally like, just imagine that you were at your job and they told you that we have a really important project, and so we're going to be meeting every day at 9 a.m. Guess what you would do? Be on the call every day at 9 a.m. This is no different, because God is wanting to meet with you. He's got something that you need to do. And in this portion of the journey, if you don't do this, this is where a lot of things are lost. This is where a lot of people don't move forward on the thing that God has called them to do, is because they don't push through and stay connected. So don't do like it may be tempted to do, just throw your hands in. Lean in to this third landmark in the journey of water walking into the thing that God's called you to build, and lean in and talk to him. Get those scriptures that I'm going to link for you to refer to help build your faith. Get a notebook so you can journal what the Lord is saying, and ask the Lord about, is there any community that he would have you be a part of as you continue to build this out. And yes, get up every day and execute on whatever it is that you hear in that quiet time. Execute on it, because you're not going to get the next step until you execute on the last step. Well, this has been great. It's been kind of long, but I wanted to give you guys some really good information. I hope that it helps someone, at least one person. I hope it helps. And it has been a pleasure. My name is Tavoya Conover, and this has been the Cheers Daughters podcast, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.